Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So we've actually reached the fourth chapter, which I think I'm very impressed by. So we are actually making progress, which is really good for a book as big as this, and really as challenging as this as well. So I don't quite recall what we talked about in the past session, but was it to do with, let's see, it's still to do with the names, right?
Yes.
Um, and but oh yeah, so it's to do with the tanazur al-ilahi. So this divine conflict between the divine names, and how do you explain this conflict? So now we're looking at the sifat. What can you say about the essence, al-that, and what can you say about? We'll also come on to tanzih and tashbih at some point as well. Um, so I'll start, and let's see where this takes us, inshallah. So the divine essence is God in himself without reference to the relationships, excuse me, without reference to the relationships which may be established between God and the creatures. In contrast, the divinity is the essence considered in relation to create things, right? Only negative attributes can be ascribed to the essence, what are called the sifat al-salbiyah. We can say what it is not, but not what it is. Ibn al-Arabi sometimes says that no name whatsoever can be applied to the essence, since it is absolutely unknowable, but considered as the divinity. So the divinity is al-uluhiyya. So when we talk about that by itself, we can't say anything about it. But when we talk about it as al-uluhiyya, God accepts all names and attributes, both positive and negative. So what you can say about him and what you cannot say about him. As a level, the divinity has to be considered in relationship to the other levels, such as creature, servant, vassal, and divine thrall. In this respect, the name Allah is strictly analogous to divine names, such as knowing and powerful, both of which have to be understood in terms of their objects. But the essence transcends levels and relationships, and hence cannot be known since it is impossible to get a bearing on it. The Sheikh frequently criticizes the theologians, the mutakallimun, for claiming to provide positive knowledge of God himself, whereas God's independence from the worlds, huwa ghaniyun an alamin, demands that he stand beyond rational understanding. But in spite of God's absolute independence of all created things, he tells us of his generosity and mercy, and such attributes demand creation, though they do not impose constraints upon him as essence. Both essence and divinity are denoted by the name Allah, which brings together all the divine names, and hence is the coincidence of opposites, Jama' al-Addad, or Jama' al-Awdad, excuse me. The, if that's correct, the opposition and contrariety found among the names explain the strife and turmoil of the cosmos, which is the locus in which the properties of the contrary names are displayed. The names encompassed by the name Allah are mutually opposed not only in a horizontal sense, but also in a vertical sense. Here we come back to the distinction between the names of incomparability and the names of acts or similarities. That's the names of tanzih and names of tashbih. True knowledge of God demands knowing him through both kinds of names. So that's the introduction. So now he's going to talk about divinity, al-uluhiyya or al-uluha, because that's what we can know about God. We can't know anything else. The word divinity derives from the roots, um, those three letters, the jadr, the root letters of the word for Allah, actually. So Hamza, Lam, and Ha, from which we have the name Allah, as well as the word Ilah or God. As was pointed out in the previous chapter, the level, so that's the martaba, or the rutba, or the daraja. The level to which the name Allah refers is the divinity, while the entity to which it refers is the essence. When we talk about the entity, that means the ain. Level and entity are the same reality, of course, since we are dealing here with a single being. But to speak of divinity is to envisage relationships with creatures, while to speak of the essence is to envisage the reality itself without any relationships. About God as divinity, we can say that certain relationships are established with Him. Then we can talk about these relationships which are known as the divine names, but we cannot talk about God in Himself, the essence, in terms of any relationships. So, sorry. So, interrelationship, let's call it a munasaba. Interrelationship between the real and creation is neither intelligible nor existent. So it's not ma'qul and it's not wujudi. Nothing comes from him in respect of his essence. Everything denoted by the law or taken by the rational faculty al-aql as a denotation is connected to the divinity, not the essence. God, in respect of being a God, is that by which the possible thing is supported in its possibility. Because you can only know Allah as a God. You can't know Him as He is in Himself. It is not correct for the real and creation to come together, ijtima'a, in any mode whatsoever in respect of the essence, only in respect of the fact that the essence is described by divinity. Divinity is one of the properties which rational faculties are able to perceive on their own. In our view, anything that the rational faculty is able to perceive on its own can be known prior to being witnessed, shuhud. But the essence of the real is outside this judgment, for it is witnessed before it is known, or rather, it is witnessed but not known, just as the divinity is known but not witnessed. So he always has this thing, right, where he says, like, you're sitting right before Allah, right? Since Allah is wujud. Wujud, you're seeing it, but you have no idea how to describe it, right? But you don't know how you're seeing it. You don't know how you're seeing Allah. You just are as essence. But as divinity, He's not witnessed until you die. You die the death of your nafs, or you die physically, then you see Him in the akhirah. How many rational men among the considerative thinkers? So these are the what are they called? Ashab al-Nadhr. How many irrational men among the considerative thinkers claiming a firm rational faculty has maintained that he has acquired knowledge of the essence in respect of his reflective consideration, another al-fikri? But he is mistaken, since he wavers, mutaraddad, in his reflection between negation and affirmation, salb wa ithbat. The affirmation returns to himself, since he only affirms that which he considers in respect of the fact that the real is knowing, powerful, desiring, and so on with all the names. The negation returns to non-existence. And negativity, and nafi, or I guess negation, and negativity, cannot be an attribute of the essence, since the attributes, the sifat of the essences of existent things are only positive, thubuti. So this reflective thinker, wavering between affirmation and negation, has gained nothing of knowledge of God. So any mutakallim you come across, now there's various kinds of mutakallim, so you cannot paint them with a sweeping brush. But there's if you come across a mutakallim who describes to you what the essence of God is, he just doesn't know what he's talking about. It's that simple. No one can tell you anything about the essence of God. The loci of manifestation, the madahir, belong to the level, not to the essence. Hence, he is not worshipped except inasmuch as he is a god. Nor does anyone assume the traits, takhalluq, of his names, except inasmuch as he is a god. Nothing is understood from his loci of manifestation, within his loci of manifestation, except that he is a god. Were the essence to make the loci of manifestation manifest, then it, the essence, would be known. Were it known, it would be encompassed. Were it encompassed, it would be limited. And were it limited, it would be confined. And were it confined, it would be owned. But the essence of the real is high, exalted above all this. It cannot be owned, it cannot be confined, and it cannot be limited. Since the essence is unknowable, no one can conceive of its opposite, right? I can only conceive the opposite of something I know. No relationship at all can be envisaged, but the divinity demands relationships. From this principle arises Ibn al-Arabi's well-known doctrine of the ma'luh, or divine thrall. So, if there's an ilah, then he has a ma'luh. So Allah has a ma'luh, which is us, which is creation. Creation is the ma'luh. And so if you have a Rabb, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Rabb, then there's a marbub, right? The word ma'luh is a past participle derived from the same root as ilah, God. Literally, it means that which is Godded over. So there's God, then there's the thing you God over, or the object in respect of which a God is a God. It is nearly synonymous with marbub, vassal, the past participle from the same root as Rabb, Lord. The divine essence cannot be understood by the rational faculty, since there is nothing other than it. But the divinity and the lordship can be understood by this faculty, since the others in relation to them are the divine thrall and the vassal, the mahluh and the marbub. We have already seen the Sheikh employing past participles derived from various divine attributes in a number of passages. For example, he is asked how there can be someone powerful without an object of power, maqdur, or a knower without an object of knowledge, ma'lum. In respect of God, he says the same principle is involved. When we speak of the names, they are relationships, or better, correlations, idafa. Each name demands two correlative terms, mutada'if, the name itself and the object to which it is connected, ta'alluq. The name Allah is not outside of this principle, only the essence, since it is not a correlative term, but the entity itself. As soon as we say that it is related to something, we are now talking about the level of the essence, not the essence itself. In the first passage below, Ibn al-Arabi is discussing the spiritual state of freedom, hurriya, achieved by the friends of God. In the last analysis, he says the creature can never be free. So because in tasawwuf, you have the maqamat, like maqam al-tawbah, maqam al-mujahada, maqam for example, muraqaba, and so on, right? So hurriya is one of the maqamat, freedom. But then he also shows you that you're actually never completely free. So in reality, there is no existing entity that possesses freedom, since the correlations prevent that. The reality of freedom is found only in the fact that the essence is independent of the worlds, even though the cosmos becomes manifest from it and through it, not through anything else. Since the essence is independent of the worlds, it is free, while the cosmos is poor and needy toward it. The creatures of the cosmos have no freedom whatsoever. They are demanded by the divinity through the properties it has prescribed for them, properties without which the divinity would have no manifestation. Hence, correlations become manifest. Therefore, the situation is dependent, mawquf, from two sides, each side depending upon the other. So it is impossible for freedom to subsist in either of the correlatives. Right. Okay. The relationship between lord and vassal exists. Through it, the lord is the vassal's lord, but there is no relationship between the vassal and the essence of the lord. Hence, nothing comes out of the essence, since the essence does not turn its attentiveness toward bringing the things into existence in respect of being the essence. It only does so inasmuch as power is attributed to it, and there is nothing to prevent it. This is what is known as the divinity. God, as the lover, al-muhib, has no name that can denote his essence. The divine thrall, who is God's beloved, looks at his effects within himself, then names him by those effects. The real, in turn, accepts the way the thrall names him. The divine thrall says, "Oh Allah." Allah says, "Here I am." The vassal says, "Oh Lord." Lord says, "Here I am." The created one, the makhluk, says, "Ya khaliq." "Oh Creator." And the creature says, "Here I am." The one provided for, the marzuq, says, "Ya razaq," or Ya razaq. "Oh all provider." The all provider says, "Here I am." The weak one says, "Oh strong." The strong says, "I respond to you," and so on. Since the cosmos has no subsistence except through God, and since the attribute of divinity has no subsistence except through the cosmos, each of the two is the provision of the other. Each takes nourishment, right, from the other, so that its existence may subsist. The very property of each demands that this be so. And then he says in his poetry, "We are his provision, since he feeds upon our existence, just as he is the provision of engendered things, without doubt. He preserves us in engendered existence, and we preserve the fact that he is a God." In these words, there is no lie, nor any heedlessness. For in every state, engendered existence admits bondage to and possession by the owner of the kingdom, Malik al-Mulk. Temporally originate existence, al-wujud al-hadith, right? So that means something that exists in time. And eternal being, al-wujud al-qadim, that which exists out of time, are tied to each other through correlation and property, not through the existence of the entity, wujud al-ain. For example, a human exists in entity in respect of the fact that he is a human being. In the state of his existence, he has no fatherhood, abuwa, as long as he does not have a son who gives that attribute to him, or as long as it is not supposed that he has a son. In the same way, he is not called an owner, malik, as long as he does not have possessions through which it is said that he is an owner. In the same way, the possessions, though they exist in entity, are not called possessions until someone owns them. Hence, God, in respect of his essence and being, is independent of the worlds. But in respect of the fact that he is a Lord, he demands vassals without doubt. So, in respect of entity, he makes no demands. But in respect of lordship, rububiyyah, he demands vassals either in existence or supposition, taqdir, like virtually. We have mentioned that every attribute in the cosmos must be supported by a divine attribute, but not by the attribute of the essence, which God merits in his essence and through which he is independent. Nor is the essential attribute which is merited by the cosmos based upon a divine attribute. Through it, the cosmos is poor, or rather, a servant for the cause, or rather, a servant. For the cosmos is more worthy of this latter than of the attribute of poverty. Right. The divinity confronts the creatures through its own specific essence as divinity, and it confronts the essence through its own essence. That is why it discloses itself in many forms, transmuting itself and undergoing continual change, right, within them. It has a face toward creation, through which it discloses itself in the forms of creation. It has a face toward the essence, through which it becomes manifest to the essence. So the created things do not know the essence except from behind its barzakh, which is the divinity. Nor does the essence exercise properties within the created beings except through this barzakh, which is the divinity. We have verified it, and we have found it no different from the most beautiful names, that Asma al-Husna, by which we call upon it. So the essence compels the cosmos only through the divine names, and the cosmos knows nothing of the real but these most beautiful divine names. Are there any questions? It's a pretty heavy going section, right? Okay, can someone volunteer to read the unknowability of the essence, please? Zanira, go ahead, thank you.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. The unknowability of the essence. God is known through the relations, attributions, and correlations that become established between Him and the cosmos. But the essence is unknown since nothing is related to it. In proof of this assertion, the Sheikh often cites the Quranic verse, God warns you about His self, which he frequently explains in terms of the prophetic saying, reflect, tafakkur, upon all things, but reflect not upon God's essence. In respect of itself, the essence has no name, since it is not the locus of effects, nor is it known by anyone. There is no name to denote it without relationship, nor with any assurance, tamkeen. For names act to make known and to distinguish, but this door, to the knowledge of the essence, is forbidden to anyone other than God, since none knows God but God. So the names exist through us and for us, they revolve around us and become manifest within us. Their properties are with us, their goals are towards us, their expressions are of us, and their beginnings are from us. If not for them, we would not be. If not for us, they would not be. Reflection, fikr, has no governing property or domain in the sense of the real, neither rationally nor according to the law. For the law has forbidden reflection upon the essence of God, a point which is a point to which is alluded by his words, God warns you about his self. This is because there is no interrelationship, munasaba, between the essence of the real and the sense of the creatures. Engendered, engendered existence has no connection whatsoever to knowledge of the essence. The only thing connected to it is the knowledge of the level, that is, that which is named Allah. This knowledge of the level is a firmly established proof, dalil. It goes straight to the mark in knowing the God, Al-Ilah. Likewise, it recognizes both the names of the acts and the descriptions of majesty appropriate to him, and perceives the reality in accordance with which engendered existence emerges from the sense. The sense is described by this level, but it is unknown in entity or quality. Kaif. In our view, there is no disputing the fact that the sense is unknown. To it are ascribed descriptions that make it incomparable with the attributes of temporal things, al-hadath, it possesses eternity, al-qidam, and to its being is ascribed beginninglessness, al-azal. But all these names designate negations, such as the negation of beginning and everything appropriate to temporal origination. A group of Ash'arite theologians oppose us on this. They imagine that they have known the real through a positive attribute of self, صفة نفسية ثبوتية. How far from the mark? How could they know that? A group of the theologians whom we have seen, including Abu Abdullah al-Qattani, Abu al-Abbas al-Ashqar, الدرير السلاوي, author of Al-Urjuza في علم الكلام, have even criticized Abu Sa'id al-Kharraz, Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, and their likes for their statement, none knows God but God. God says in that there are signs for people who reflect. But reflection upon the essence of God is impossible, so there remains only reflection upon engendered existence. That to which reflection becomes connected is the most beautiful names or the features, simats,
Yes.
of the temporally originated things. The names, all of them, are the root of engendered existence.
MashaAllah. I think that was quite clear and easier than what we read before. Any questions? Any questions on that?
So
All right.
what did the Ash'ari say that like what's the positive attribute? What's the thubutiyya that they knew God through?
Good question. I would need to ask my friends who have more knowledge of Kalam than I do. But in general, they're making a claim about the essence. What is that exact claim? I have to ask. And the point being here, you cannot make a claim on the essence at all, period. So let me ask and see what is the exact claim that's being made. I would assume it's related to what he's saying here, that it's Qadim and Azal, right? which is a valid, it's a valid designation. But I think he's also saying that it's what it still has issues, even though it's a valid designation, because you just can't describe the essence, period. Even if you're describing with something that's like quite appropriate to it, eternal and beginningless, beginningless. But yeah, let me ask.
Well,
Okay, yes, yeah.
if I understood it correctly, like he's saying that they're not like Qidam and Azal are like negations. They're saying that he doesn't have a beginning and he doesn't have an end. But he's saying the Ash'aris actually said that he does, like they made a positive affirmative statement about the essence. But according to him, it's okay to make negations to say, oh, he's not. He does not have a beginning. He does not have an end. That much we can know, but we can't know something thubutiya.
Sure,
That's what
absolutely.
I understood.
Yeah, but also, if you take it further, so positive statements are dangerous. Negative statements are better. So negative statements are safe, they're better. They're still inaccurate by themselves because you are limiting the essence. We just can't talk about it. But negative statements are better than positive ones. But negative statements are still not perfect. Yeah, would you mind carrying on?
Yeah. Okay. Wait, where was I? Inciting, right?
In Yeah, yes.
Okay. Inciting the injunction of the Sharia not to meditate upon the sense of God, Ibn al-Arabi is not implying that it is wrong to say anything about God's essence. If that were his position, he would be contradicting himself constantly. What he has in mind is a peculiar mental process denoted by the words fikr and tafakkur, a process which is the domain of the proponents of kalam and the philosophers. His own position and that of the great Sufis are not based on reflection, but on the Quran and unveiling, kashf. That is, knowledge given to them by God without the interference of the rational, aqli, or considerative, nazari faculty, known as reflection. This point will be discussed in detail beginning in chapter 12. For now, the following passage can serve as an example of the types of criticisms the Sheikh levels at thinkers who cannot transcend the rational faculty or aql. The law
That's
has
pretty
forbidden
clear,
reflection
mashallah.
upon his essence.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
The law has forbidden reflection upon his essence. He has said God warns you about Himself. In other words, do not embark upon reflection about God's self. The rational thinkers added disobedience toward the law to their meddling, fudul, by plunging into what has been forbidden to them. One of them said that he is a body, another that he is not a body. One said that he is a substance, another that he is not a substance. One said that he is in a direction, another that he is not in a direction. But God did not command a single one of his creatures to plunge into this sort of thing to any extent, neither him who negates nor him who affirms. If these people were asked to verify their knowledge of a singular sense in the cosmos, they would not know how to do so. If it was said to this plunger, how does your soul govern your body? Is it inside or outside it, or neither inside nor outside? Consider that with your rational faculty. And this extraneous thing through which the animate body moves, sees, hears, imagines, and reflects, to what does it go back? To a single thing or to many things? Does it go back to a substance, an accident, or a body? If you were to seek from him rational proofs, not proofs derived from the law, he would not find any rational proofs whatsoever. He would not know through the rational faculty that spirits have a subsistence and an existence after death. God is one God, and there is no other God. He's named by those names, from the meaning of which it is understood that none are worthy of them except Him. In other words, He possesses this level. Do not embark, my friend, upon plunging into what, how much, and how. That would prevent you from plunging into what has been prescribed for you by the law, the cleave. Cling to the path of faith and works in accordance with what God has made obligatory fard upon you. And remember your Lord in the morning and evening. with the remembrance, dhikr, which He has set down for you in the law. If this knowledge, which is bestowed by reflecting upon God, were a light, as is supposed, the darkness of obfuscation and skepticism, tashkik, would never enter the heart, yet it does enter. It is not one of the characteristics of darkness to dispel light, nor does darkness possess any authority over light. Authority belongs only to the light which dispels darkness. This shows that all those things known by the proponents of Kalam and the plungers concerning the sense of God are not lights, even though they imagine, before any obfuscation enters in upon them, that through it they dwell in light and upon a clear sign from their Lord. They do not know their deficiency until the obfuscation enters in upon them. Who knows? Perhaps the opinion which they suppose is only an obfuscation in the truth and right knowledge. You are well aware that in the Mu'tazilites' view, the proof with which the Ash'ari affirms a question whose truth is denied by the Mu'tazilite is an obfuscation. In the same way, the Ash'arite holds that the Mu'tazilite's proof in negating what the Ash'arite has affirmed is an obfuscation. Moreover, there is no school of thought, madhab, that does not have leaders, all of whom disagree. It does not matter if they are all described, for example, as being Ash'arites. Abul Ma'ali's position is different from the Qadi's position. The Qadi maintains a position that disagrees with the Ustadh, and the Ustadh maintains a position in which he opposes the Sheikh. But all of them claim to be Ash'arites, and the Mu'tazilites are the same, as are the philosophers in their doctrines about God.
MashaAllah, that's pretty clear. Are there any questions? Yeah? Okay, does someone else want to read the independence of the essence, please? I know this is quite dry stuff, but I think you'll find it useful, mashallah, that he is really clearly laying the groundwork for what the Sheikh Al-Akbar tells us is essential about knowledge of God, what you can know and what you can't know.
I can try the next one.
Thank you so much, Sidi Zubair. Go ahead.
The independence of the essence. As Ibn al-Arabi constantly quotes from the Quran, God is independent of the worlds in respect of the essence. The term ghina signifies independence, wealth, and having need for nothing. God has all wealth, being and all its attributes in himself. So he is independent of the cosmos and needs nothing whatsoever from it. The opposite of ghina is faqr, poverty or need, which, as we have seen on several occasions, is the essential and inherent attribute of all created or temporally originated hadith things. Everything other than God is constantly in need of God, not only for its existence, but also for every positive attribute it displays. Since these attributes are nothing but the properties and effects of the divine names. God reported about himself that he possesses two relationships, a relationship with the cosmos through the divine names, which affirm the entities of the cosmos, and the relationship of his independence from the cosmos. In respect of his relationship of independence, he knows himself and we know him not. In actuality, the divine perfection is found in the penetration of power into the objects of power, desire into the objects of desire, and in the manifestation of the properties of the divine names. The essential perfection possessed by the essence is absolute independence from all this. God says, O people, you are the poor toward Allah, and Allah, He is the independent, the praiseworthy. Quran 35:15. In other words, He is independent through His names, just as we are poor toward His names. That is why He mentioned in this verse the name Allah, which brings together all the divine names.
Yeah, that's correct. Sorry. Sorry, just before you carry on. So That's why he mentions the name Allah. But now he mentions independence. Does anyone have the Arabic of that verse? It goes something like, Ya ayyuhan nas, antum fuqara ila Allah, wallah huwa. Is huwa in there? Huwa al-ghani al-hamid, right?
Yes, it's there. Wallahu huwa al-ghani al-hamid.
So huwa, right? Because huwa
Yeah.
refers to the essence. Whenever you find huwa in the Quran, it's talking about something called the huwiyya. The huwiyya, his he-ness. That from which we know he is he, huwa, but you can't know anything else. That is the essence. So the essence is independent and praiseworthy. CD, go ahead.
Yep. Independence from creation belongs to God from eternity without beginning, Adal. While poverty toward God in respect of his independence belongs to the possible things in the state of its non-existence from eternity without beginning. Freedom is a station of the essence, not of the divinity. It can never be fully delivered over to the servant, since he is God's servant through a servanthood that does not accept emancipation. But we have considered freedom impossible for the real in respect of the fact that he is a God, because he is tied to the divine thrall, just as a master is tied to the existence of the slave, an owner to possessions, and a king to the kingdom. The reality of correlation demands, both rationally and ontologically, the concept of two correlative terms. But there can be no freedom along with correlation, and lordship and divinity are correlations. But since there is no interrelationship or correlation between the real and creation, on the contrary, he is independent of the worlds. And this belongs to no existent essence save the essence of the real. No engendered thing is tied to the essence. No eye perceives it. No limitation, no limit encompasses it. And no demonstration, burhan, gives knowledge of it.
I mean,
According to
that's sorry. I mean, that's pretty straightforward, right? The essence is completely independent. Period. And just so we don't mix things up, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the essence needs nothing, period. But if he wants to be known, then there has to be a cosmos. And so on with every other attribute. But he doesn't actually need it. That's all this is. See, go ahead.
So, question, I mean,
Yes.
when your last point, he doesn't need it, but he did create it, right, with that intention. So how do we reconcile this conflict? I'm referring to the hadith where he wished to be known, and I'm paraphrasing, obviously, and he created. So how do we reconcile that?
Because wish is irada, and also the hadith has hub, he loves to be known. So love and will are attributes. Attributes are correlations. Correlations are connected to the cosmos. That's all fine. So there's no contradiction. But so that's God as divinity. That's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as an ilah, as his uluhiyah. But Allah as essence needs nothing.
Mm.
The essence is the only thing that exists. Even like the sifat, like for example, the divine names, what you would have learned previously are that they are non-existent relations. They are nisbat ma'duma or nisab ma'duma. The essence is the only thing that actually exists. And since it is the only thing that exists, it needs nothing. So whenever we talk about Allah quote unquote needs something, it's more metaphorical because we're talking about something that's non-existent. His attributes in relation to the creatures who are non-existent compared to him. So we're just talking about his attributes. and what's called the martaba, the level of divinity. That's why he talks about the level, the martaba of divinity, because it is at that level you talk about the real being tied to his creation, the creator being tied to the created things, the master being tied to what he owns, but not at the martaba of the essence.
Understood.
Thank you. Go ahead.
According to the Sheikh, God, in respect of being the divinity, must create the cosmos, even though, in respect of the essence, he is independent of the cosmos. God, as essence, has nothing to do with the universe, but as creator, he demands creation. As powerful, he demands objects of power. As Lord, he demands vessels. As God, he demands divine thralls. Once we view the universe as already created, we see that God is creator of the things and revealer of the scriptures. In both respects, that which he has shown to us, the universe and the revealed text, speaks of him as generous, gracious, kind, beneficent, bestower, giver, and so on. All these names denote the divinity as it is in fact, so they all demand that the cosmos have some sort of existence. One may be allowed to argue at this point that God as divinity could have created something else, though the Sheikh rejects this position in other contexts, but not that he could not have created. The created cosmos and the statements of the revealed books both prove that God is a creator and realities do not change. This type of approach is basic to Ibn al-Arabi's way of thinking, and we will meet many more examples of it. For the present, it is sufficient to quote a few passages which show that God as essence is in no way constrained or compelled to create the cosmos. It is only God as the divinity who, by the very reality of divinity, will never refrain from creativity and generosity. As soon as we have said divinity, we have also said cosmos. Abu Yazid used to say, I have no attributes. So it is much more appropriate to negate any delimitation by attributes from the real, since he is independent of the cosmos. For attributes demand engendered things, for there were in the real that which demands the cosmos. It would not be correct for him to be independent of that which he demands. Though God in his essence is independent of the worlds, it is known that he is described by generosity, al-karam, munificence,
Yes. Yes.
al-jud, and mercy, al-rahmah. Hence, there must be objects of mercy and objects of generosity. That is why God says, when my servants question thee about me, surely I'm near. I respond to the caller when he calls to me. Quran 2:186. God answers the caller through munificence and generosity. And what's the meaning of munificence? Al-Jud? Al-Jud.
See, so Jud and Karam. Karam is, I mean, so I have to go back and double check this. But one of them, I think it's Karam. It's when you're generous. It's when I give you what you need and what you ask for. Jud is the generosity I give you before you even ask for it.
Oh, without even asking or before. Got it.
Before you even ask for it. Generosity is when I give you what you ask for. But Jud is when I give it to you before you ask for it. So there is that distinction in Arabic, but I'd have to double check just to make sure it's those two exact words. They have like 5, 6 different words for generosity, and each one has its own nuance and shade of meaning.
Got it. Continue.
Yes, please.
Asking through one's states, al-ahwal, is without doubt more complete than asking through one's words. Response is quicker to him who asks through his state, since he's asking through his very essence. Moreover, munificence towards someone who is distressed and needy is in actual fact a greater munificence than munificence shown towards someone who is not distressed. The possible thing in the state of its non existence has a more intense poverty toward God than in the state of its existence. That is why the possible thing makes no claims, dawa, in the state of its non existence, unlike the state of its existence. Hence, effusing ifada existence upon the possible thing in its state of non existence is a greater act of munificence and generosity than giving it something once it exists. Though God is independent of the worlds, this means that he is incomparable in the sense that any poverty might subsist in him or any uh, denotation other than his own self might denote him. Hence, he brought the cosmos into existence out of his munificence and generosity. No intelligent person or man of faith doubts this, or the fact that munificence is an attribute of self, for he is the munificent, the generous in himself. So the cosmos must exist. If knowledge has judged that something must exist, it is impossible for it not to exist. So there must be relationships or attributes according to the position of the attributist, or names according to the position of others. So there must be manyness, kathra, in the one entity. Chivalry, Fatuwa, is a divine attribute by way of meaning, but there is no word derived from it by which God is named. Both the law and rational proofs show that he possesses independence from the cosmos absolutely. One who has such independence and then brings the cosmos into existence does not bring it into existence because of his poverty toward it. He only brings the cosmos into existence for the sake of the cosmos, as an act of charity, ithar, toward it in spite of the fact that he alone possesses being. This is chivalry itself.
So CD, this is perfect. Ithar is yet a third word for generosity and charity. Ithar is altruism. Ithar is selflessness. So he brought the cosmos into existence through sheer altruism without any need towards it whatsoever.
Continue.
Yes, please.
There are three reports of the divine chivalry, one Quranic and two prophetic. In the Quran, God says, I created jinn and mankind only to worship me. 51-56. The form of chivalry here is that he created them to give them the blessing in of existence, to bring them out from the evil of non-existence, to make it possible for them to assume the traits, the khalluk of the divine names, and to make them successors, khalf. All of this is chivalry toward them, given that he alone possesses everything in which he has made them successors. Then he knew that making people feel obliged, imtinan, detracts from a blessing. So he concealed, sith, the blessing from them with his words. I only created jinn and mankind to worship me. He made it appear that he had created them for his sake rather than for their sake. In a prophetic report that comes from Moses, it is said that God created things for us and he created us for him. Then he concealed this with his words. There is nothing that does not glorify him in praise. 1744. So that all might know through his giving knowledge that they are glorifying him in praise. Thus we smell no whiff of feeling obliged. In this mosaic report, the property of chivalry is that he created things for us as an act of charity for us. The second prophetic report is that which has been related through the messenger of God from God. God said, I was a treasure but was not unknown. So I love to be known, and I created the creatures and made myself known to them. Then they came to know me.
SubhanAllah. And you were just mentioning that hadith.
Yep.
Yeah, that's incredible. Did everyone get that point about creation being an act of charity? And he uses those Quranic ayat as a way of covering up his own futuwa, this divine futuwa. If so, inshallah, then we'll just stop there. And any questions? MashaAllah. Okay, guys, thank you so much. Then I'll just stop recording here and we'll call it a night. And if any questions come to your mind, just please, put them in the chat room.